Have you ever thought about why people tried to romanticize or bring sympathy to the story of Satan? I had a brother ask me that question quite recently, and as I thought about it, and by the way, I'm getting back to him very late, so I apologize for that. As I thought about that, the one thing that rang in my head is the reality that that is exactly what Satan would want from us. In fact, Jesus himself teaches us this through the letter of the Corinthians by the Apostle Paul. We are told that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. It is, by all accounts, the deceiver's desire that we view him in a positive light, that we try to understand where he came from, that we try to sympathize with him. But why is it that we do that? Why is it that humanity has a tendency to paint the devil in a positive light? And you can turn on any number of media today that does that very thing, be it supernatural or I believe there's even a show called Lucifer. Uh, there are all kinds of movies and TV shows that have done this. But I think it ultimately stems back to John 8. Jesus uses these very strong words of the religious hypocrites of his day, and he says, "You are of your father the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father." Very often, people bring sympathy to the story of Satan simply because if you can justify why Satan rebelled against God, you can justify your own rebellion against God. And that kind of makes sense why humanity would do that then. But I had another brother ask me a different question, and it has a similar theme to it. Different kind, but similar theme. Another friend of mine asked me if, when it comes to washing feet, he noticed a tendency of people on the left to suggest that we should wash the feet of those who disagree with us in regards to lifestyle and faith. And wouldn't that ultimately be an acceptance of their behaviors or their views? And so I went back and I looked again at the Gospel of John, where we see Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. And I would want to note, obviously, Jesus washes the feet of all of his disciples, and yet one of them, as it were, was a devil. But notice something. Jesus only washed the feet of those who called him Lord. Whether they were sincere or not, Jesus only washed the feet of those who called him Lord. Likewise, I think it would be right and good for us to do the same. Whether someone is sinless or not, because they're not, is not the key. Whether they are rebelling against God is the question in play. Whether they are acknowledging the lordship of Christ is the question in play. And so I do think there is a tendency that those who suggest we wash the feet of everybody have that very idea in hand. I myself that we are accepting the views of others, that we're willing to say that, well, maybe they're part of all of us too, and there is a clear distinction in scripture between believers and unbelievers. I myself have washed the feet. I have washed the feet of the people in our congregation, and I would continue to do so because God has put me as a shepherd over them, and I want to serve them. I want to show them what true service and true leadership is like. True leadership is to serve even your disciples, those who are underneath you, under your authority. And that's exactly what Jesus did. So would I wash the feet of those who are not believers? Would I wash the feet of those who do not confess Christ as Lord? No, I would not. Nor do I think anyone who names the name of Christ should. We are making a statement when we do that. We're making a statement that this person is clean, that this person is washed by the blood and a servant, a disciple of Christ. And somebody who is not one of those people is not somebody who I would wash the feet of. I understand the desire for some Christians. We're trying to be compassionate. We're trying to outreach. We're trying to evangelize. And yet, Christians historically have always understood that there are things for believers that are not for unbelievers. And the obvious case of this is the supper. There is not a pastor I know today that would teach that unbelievers should take of the supper. There are questions among pastors about should people who aren't a part of our congregation, people who aren't a part of our movement take, but there is not a pastor I know today that would suggest somebody who is not a believer should partake in the sacrament of Holy Communion. Likewise, I cannot read the New Testament teaching of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples and suggesting that we are to wash the feet of everyone. In fact, I think it would be, in a sense, another way of saying we're trying to justify, we're trying to wash over certain sins, which is very similar to the first topic I brought up. People are always trying to find a way to make their sins not look so bad. To say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm created in the image of God. I'm worthy of respect and honor. Therefore, accept me the way I am. And while the first two statements are true, the last one is not. That's what I think. Tell me what you think about that in the comments below.